Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to talk to you about how the narcissist can't do right by you and how I see it. So let's jump in. So when you're dealing with the narcissist doesn't feel empathy. So that's to say they don't feel love. When you don't feel love, you don't feel any of the 9 fruits of the spirit. So you're going to be thinking the opposite: anger, hate, jealousy, greed, those sort of things, lust instead of love. Those are their fruits. And that's because they sacrifice their true self for the false self, so they're a lie as well. Now, when you get this combination, they stand out from humanity if you can read their mannerisms, their signs, and their actions versus what they say, what they speak on, and who they're around. You got to be keen to it, though, because they wear other people's energy, so they cloak themselves. And when they cloak themselves, it's really good. It could be in innocent people's energy that they steal and flip with because they can't get forgiveness of their sins. So it becomes a contractual agreement between different people that they're dating. They call them supply sources. So you have multiple people that are their supply sources. They supply them with fuel, energy, and their aura that they wear. And that's where all of their increase comes from. Yeah, they make a salary, or they work at a job, but it doesn't pay very well because you need 4 times the amount of money to operate like a narcissist with their negative reaping. And they also cloak themselves in this aura because they wouldn't be able to get supply sources without it. That's why they're almost like not humanity. They're almost artificial intelligence in a demonic way, and this is all for entertainment purposes. But they're almost artificial intelligence with a demonic aura to them, outside of stealing other people's auras. So they like people that are naive, people that are innocent. They like those auras, and highly empathetic because they have the ability to manifest abundance. And those are the ones they want to put their foot on their necks and control them. Multiple sources. They want to isolate them so nobody sees them because they know the benefits of having their aura. And so they will smear you up, make you look bad, so nobody would want to be with you. So they can continue to come back and isolate you, or you isolate yourself, and they put you in fear and cohesive control. They run that hot and cold on you through your endocrine system, and they get you trauma bonded so that you're only wanting them. You're addicted to them. And they will cycle with you year after year after year through many sources of supply. And that's how they make their living. That's how they manifest, and that's how they get their legal titles and everything. They also like children's energy because it's naive and innocent. So these are the types that they really draw from, because 2 narcissists, they can't draw from each other's energy. There's nothing to draw from, evil and evil. They can't get any. They need the goodness energy. They need the energy that they can't produce. They can't generate. They can only generate evil energy. So they need to throw their evil on you and take your good energy and mimic you, mimic a good person. And that's what they have to do. The thing is they always need them. It's kind of like if it's like an alcoholic or something. They have to go to the store every day and get something to drink, or go to the restaurant and get something to drink, for them to be equal, for them to be balanced. You know, after a while, when you become an addict, you need to balance that. And if you don't get your fix, you flip out. And you will either have a seizure or land yourself in some kind of hospitalization. And that's exactly what happens to the narcissist. If they lose all their supply sources, then they will wile out, and they will end up in some sort of hospitalization. And they'll lose everything. That's called a narcissistic injury or collapse. And then everybody sees them for who they are. That's because they're not wearing any energy anymore that is empathetic and innocent and naive. So then people won't want to be with them, and they'll lose more supply sources. And then because they can't get supply, now all their negative reaping actually catches up with them because they're not cloaking themselves anymore. So that's when they get pounded with negative reaping all at once. And it's not supposed to happen like that in regular humanity, but because these people operate in the order of witchcraft, which is cheating the system of the universal laws that God put into the foundations of this world system. That's what witchcraft is. It's to cheat. It's to cheat the world's order. The order that God put, the good order that God put into the system of the ground, the earth, and this galaxy, to keep it in order. Witchcraft knocks it out of order, and these people operate the same way. Because if you have dark energy attachment, then you're going to operate in witchcraft, because that's what the epitome of witchcraft is. It's dark energy that taught witchcraft to humanity. So when they can't cloak themselves, these are people that have given up on their soul's purpose. They are, well, there may be some that are just possessed and may be able to get some sort of deliverance and wholeness. I don't know, but the majority of them, I would say they're pretty much reprobate, spoken of in Romans 1, 2 Timothy 3, where God has let them go while they're still alive, walking the earth as zombies. But what they do, because they can't think like this, whenever they can't think with the fruits of the Spirit, it's almost like this. Whenever they have to do something good, or they have thoughts to change things, to make good change in their life, it's almost like they have a loop to, kind of like this. It's like if you were to think about doing something bad because you're a good person, you might would think about it, but you almost don't even think about it because you know it's bad, right? But everybody has options to do things. But it's kind of like if you were to even dare go as far as to think about doing something bad, you would just think about it and it would just be a loop. You would never do it, but you would think about it, right? Because it would piss you off or something. So you would just sit there and you would go in a circle with, man, you know, I would like to do this, but I'm not going to do this because it's not right. And that's how they are in the positive location of things. When it comes to the location of having to look at themselves in the mirror and want to do something right, they don't do it. It's like an avoidance. So they'll just like have this loop to nowhere thinking about doing something good or having certain feelings or making certain changes, right? But they never do. That's why they can sit on a decision for decades, just like how an avoidant would be. A narcissist is basically an avoidant with no empathy, to where an avoidant, I don't know enough about avoidance. I have looked into it a little bit, but they seem to actually have empathy and not try to hurt people, although they hurt people indirectly. And they never get much accomplished because they're afraid to. And the narcissist is like that when it comes to goodness, except they don't feel empathy, so they're sadistic and malignant with it. They enjoy the pain, but when they can't bring the pain because they have no supply and fuel to wear and to do it with, they can't work in the action of it. So it forces them into a narcissistic injury and collapse. And when they're in collapse, they're just in a hospital bed or something, or in some sort of restraints, because it could be even a spiritual restraint where they're in spiritual prison. Sometimes if God doesn't put them in actual prison, he'll put them in a spiritual prison to where they're locked in their head so they can't do anything. And that could be worse than physical prison, really. But they operate in and out of psychosis, delusions, illusions, and they lack a lot of things. They don't sleep a lot, and they have many addictions. So, when you put those combinations together, mixed with no empathy, and they don't really live in the moment. They're living in always like the past or the future, which is not good for psychosis or delusions or illusions. You want to live in the moment that you're living. You use the past as a reflection to learn from, and not to make change and not to do some of those things again. Some of the past you want to build on because it worked for you. The future is just your vision, where you're going, and then your current day is to deal with what you're dealing with and maybe immediate threats and immediate blessings. And that's kind of how you want to operate in a balanced state. But they're in all these delusions, illusions that they've made for you and made for themselves. So they almost are, whenever they feel like in the feelings of what empathy would bring on or repentance would bring on, they would never actually fulfill the order. They would never actually go through with the thoughts that may be of goodness or of change. What they'll do is they'll just sit there and think about it and spin in a circle, laying in bed. And then they'll just continue like that during their collapse, but they won't actually do anything. And if they do, it would be out of fakery. And if it was even somewhat genuine, it would only be temporarily, because once they get fueled up again, that pride and that arrogance pumps them right back up, and they forget all about doing anything with any goodness and significance to help others, or to even help themselves in a righteous kind of way. It's almost like they've lost control over not only their soul, their mind, their spirit, but they're also their avatar, that body they're living in. even if they were in control of their spirit and they couldn't control the avatar because something else was in the action of controlling it. You can't do anything. And I don't know how far deliverance goes for these types of individuals. I know other individuals can feel empathy and do have their truth to them, can get caught up in being possessed and being delivered and going back to a whole life where they can recover fully and be workers of goodness and light. I mean, it talks about Mary Magdalene. She had, I think it was 7 demons that were delivered from her, and she became Jesus's best friend. She was his closest counterpart, and all the way up to the crucifixion and beyond. So anybody that comes to the Lord is dealing with sin, because we all deal with sin and coming out of a sinful nature to being repentant and making true change. The narcissist doesn't seem to even have the ability to do it, which would make sense if they sacrifice their true self and they can't feel love. I don't know how this narcissism thing has always been a weird topic of conversation. This is really almost like what you would consider a conspiracy theory in today's day and time. If people knew at least what I know about these individuals, or what some of you know that have listened to the material on my channel, I mean, you could talk to people for days about this and they wouldn't believe you. They would think you're nuts. But the fact of the matter is this is going on everywhere. And it's been hidden because they don't really teach it. And they don't really promote authenticity as something that we should all want to be operating in. If we all operate in authenticity, we'd neutralize the narcissist out of all these legal positions of power. That's why there's so much war. That's why everything's being destroyed. And that's why every brick that you plant or you cement in, 3 bricks are being destroyed, because there's so many of these narcissists in these legal positions and these governmental positions and these CFO and, these CEO positions that are running things, because they've been manifesting off highly empathetic people as sources of supply for so long. And it's been happening under the noses of everybody. They work out of chaos, so their order is out of chaos. So when they create wars, that's where they create their order from. It's the same thing with the narcissist. They create confusion, and you're confused because you think righteously, but they're not. They're in order when you're confused. When you're not in order, when you're not confused, when you're in order, they're confused. Because God works from order to order. There is no confusion. But the enemy works by confusing others. They bring their own negative demonic order. Thank you for watching.